Welcome back on board the Starship. I'm talking with Mike Freebury and David Cayton, and Mike Freebury has just published Killers on the Moor, which charts his research over the last 11 years into the animal mutilation phenomenon in the United Kingdom. Now, another case that you've investigated, Mike, are sheep cases on Dartmoor, and I've just got some notes here which says that there's been 70 sheep killed in 18 separate attacks on Dartmoor over a period of about 5 years.
5 years, yes.
Now, and you've looked into these. I mean, are there any patterns, Mike? I mean, they seem to be located in very specific areas.
Well, this series of attacks first came to my notice in 2005 when I asked the Western Morning News Archive Department to see if they could find any details of similar attacks on animals, similar, I say, to the Dartmoor ponies, because I just felt that there had to be other cases.
Yes.
And one of the cases they came up with was one that was fairly recent at the time, which had occurred on the 2nd of January 2005. Apparently 7 sheep had been, they said, strangled and left in the shape of an occult star on the side of a hill on Dartmoor.
Occult star.
An occult star. Well, I was intrigued by this, and I decided to go down to Dartmoor to do some field research, visit the scene crime, and to do further investigation to see if the facts were as stated in the media reports. The first thing I found was that nobody from the media had actually been to the crime scene.
Never.
Yes. So
it does surprise me.
So I then began to make my investigations, and I spoke to a couple of the farmers. The one farmer said that he'd never seen anything like it in all his generations farming on that moor. He'd never seen anything like this. He said it was highly unusual. It wasn't a lightning strike, which occasionally happens, and it wasn't through any natural death. The animals had in fact been killed in a systematic way. He also said that it was apparent that the victims had been split into 2 groups and corralled in 2 areas.
Without fences and things.
Without
it's
fences.
Invisible forces keeping the poor sheep in that spot under control. Yeah.
Now, I mean, occult star, I've got the diagram here that's in your book of how the sheep were laid out. If that's an occult star, then I'm Bob Lazar. That's not an occult star. It's, you know, so they would put that in the newspaper, and immediately people think it's done by human beings. It has to be.
Absolutely, and this is a common thing that happens with mutilation attacks, that they're invariably put down to occult attacks, and sometimes, as the police did in one interview, blamed the pagans for it, which is incredible.
They're a peaceful bunch, really.
They're a peaceful bunch of people. They may not share the same views as other people, but they do not butcher animals in this way, or in any way, as far as I'm aware.
Now, one particular Dartmoor case, I mean, you've got photographs in your book here, Mike. If we just touch on that, because there was one case where you wanted to get the photographs off the police.
Yes,
so they had some images.
I did actually manage to accurately predict the second of these attacks, because there'd been a high incidence of attacks worldwide being carried out during the moon phases of a full moon, 3 days before, 3 days after. So I'd warned one of the farmers. I said, look, be careful, because it's during these full moon cycles that is likely to be an attack.
Now, some people might say that proves that it's a cult. But I would say not necessarily. It could be that whatever technology is being applied uses the gravitational pull of the moon, whoever's technology it might be. So I don't think it necessarily means it's man.
No.
But go on.
And I had a call in October 2005 from the farmer who was distraught, and I said, look, go and have a look again at the bodies and check to see, look inside the mouths. She said, well, the mouths are closed. I said, look inside the mouths, whatever, and just check to see if the tongues have been removed from by a precise cut to the back of the mouth. And she went back, she checked the bodies, she rang me back and she said, you're absolutely right.
Right, so the tongues have been cut with a
Tongues
clean,
have been excised.
not bitten off.
Not bitten off. They've been excised from to the back of the throat. There was no blood.
So no blood on the ground,
No.
but injuries in the bodies. And did these have jaw strips on them?
They had jaw strips and they had eyes removed.
Right.
So
not characteristic of a predator, basically.
no, certainly not. I mean, birds will peck out eyes from dead sheep,
Yeah.
but you can clearly see that they've been pecked out. These had been surgically removed.
So you wanted to get hold of the detailed photographs that the police had taken?
Yes, the police had, by this time, decided they had to take some sort of action. They sent scene of crimes officers to the crime scene. The bodies there were two attacks, one on the Friday night, one on the Saturday night. I think it was the 14th and the 15th of October. And 4 had been killed in a field. Well, actually, they'd been taken from the moor over an 8-foot fence and dropped into the field.
Right.
And 4 had been killed on Barn Hill.
Mm-hmm. Now, eventually you managed to get these photographs after a 3.5-year
Yes.
Freedom of Information battle.
It was quite a battle to get it because when I was aware that photographs would be available, that were in existence and that the police had taken them, I thought this was a good opportunity for me to go and cooperate with the police, give them what expertise I could. And
Because like Joan Amos, you wanted to work alongside the police and assist the police with your research.
Absolutely, yes. And I think this generally is what researchers really want to do, because obviously the more we work together, the better.
We were on the Sussex horse case. The police were present at the site, and they said they wanted to speak to us, and we were there alongside. They never came up to speak to us, did they?
No. I mean, there is a conflict, though, if there's a cover-up from a high level.
Yes.
You know, you're not necessarily always going to get cooperation from the police, especially if they can't explain who's done it.
No.
And, you know.
Well, I think these attacks are certainly beyond the comprehension of a lot of people because of the very nature of them. But I went to Tavistock Police Station to ask them if I could have the police file on it. It said I had the owner's consent to make that application. And they said, yes, sure, you can have a look at it. There's no problem. You can look at the photographs. But you've got to go through the proper channels. And those channels are the Freedom of Information Act. So I made an application to headquarters at Exeter. And unfortunately, I was refused. So I then appealed against that decision, and again it was refused. It was about 2.5 years before I could get a case officer to look at it and deal with it. Unfortunately, when they finally made their decision, it was to withhold disclosure. So I was really left with either just walking away from it or going to a tribunal, and I elected to go to a tribunal. And I finally did win the case under EA 0012 2009.
So you were then given access to the photographs?
I was then given access to the photographs, which did prove to be sensational.
Yes, and some of these are in your book, Mike.
Yes,
and,
yes. The police, I have to stress, they do have copyright on these images, but they have been kind enough to release them for the book.
Right, but we're not allowed to show them on the TV.
Unfortunately not, no.
So we can't put them on the screen. We can show pictures similar with other sheep that have had the same similar jaw strip, but the jaw strip in this particular case, or these cases, is absolutely clean. A lot of people might not realise that if you try to take the jaw flesh off an animal, you will be left with lots of muscle tissue, etc. It's very firmly fixed onto its jaw. This is like a flute. It's completely clean of everything. Now, you've spoken to, well, I've spoken to a butcher who said that to get a jaw like that, you would always have knife marks on it to get a jaw clean. And you've also spoken to people at abattoirs.
An abattoir, yes, and he said he used to be a butcher, this chap, as well, and he said they'd have to use high pressure hot steam to get anywhere near that, and it still wouldn't be as pristine as these sorts of jaw strips. And a lot of labour.
Yeah, a predator, there is no way a predator could nibble the flesh
chewing
off
away,
a bone to get it like, I mean, unfortunately we can't show that specific image on the screen, but it's in your book, Mike, and it is quite an incredible image, the jaw strip on that particular sheep.
Yeah.
Okay, now I mentioned before that there'd been a total of 18 attacks on Dartmoor over about the last 5 years, and 70 sheep in total mutilated in this very bizarre surgical manner. Now, interestingly, and this was mentioned in the film that we made 2 years ago called Silent Killers, it's in a very confined area. The vast majority of the sheep have been deposited in a 1/4 square mile zone on Dartmoor.
Yes, that's true.
Now, my thoughts on that is that there must be something very important or specific about that particular area. Either, can we say it's some kind of portal or access point, or perhaps that there's something under the ground there. In my opinion, there must be something specific about that zone if they're all being taken there.
There was an instance where sheep were actually moved from one farmer to another farmer 5 miles away, and animals that he had got, I think he got some cattle, had been moved to another farm close by.
Right.
It quite incredible. I have investigated 1 or 2 instances of what they call teleportation. It's as if they've taken these animals and looked at them, maybe examined them in some way, and then deposited them in a totally different place.
Right, and this is a place that's not linked by a straight road or anything like that?
No.
It would be over fields.
And behind lock gates into another farmer's land. And,
Right, right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you and I have hypothesised over this in the past, David, haven't we? But you said to me, well, you know, there are too many cases of extremely remote ones, individual ones, around the country. Is that the case? That there's,
sometimes
you know,
just
for
one
all
animal.
this little hotspot in Dartmoor, it's not just, you know, there's cases everywhere.
Yes.
In lots of different areas.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, the one thing, just going back to your point on the portal area, we have managed to capture by camera some strange light forms, some of which are rectangular.
Right.
Now these, I know there's a controversy about orbs, and I don't want to get involved in that.
Right.
But we have actually managed to get photographs, and they're included in the book.
Right.
Of rectangular orbs.
Very sharply defined.
Very sharply defined.
Okay. So let's say that it is an off-world, or well, a non-human intelligence, say. It's not necessarily a flying saucer then, it's perhaps some cloaked or something,
it could be something,
highly covert technology or...
Well, I honestly do not believe that the technology employed in these attacks is terrestrial. I do not feel that we have that kind of technology portable, or indeed that kind of stealth technology, which may suggest that the perpetrators of these attacks could be interdimensional.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you say that, and a lot of people would roll their eyes. You know, I mean, it is. You're right in saying that no one's ever been seen or caught by the police or by anyone, and there are hundreds and hundreds of cases worldwide. And I always quote, well, 2 quotes. One from one of Timothy Good's book, a case in the States where a farmer actually saw a cow being dragged backwards by an invisible, where he said it was making a transformer type sound, and this cow was being dragged backwards, and he couldn't see by what. So he fired his gun, and then it stopped, and then the next day he found I think one of his cows was missing and the other one was mutilated with the classic. So that was something invisible. If you believe that farmer's account, which you know, why would he make that up?
Yes, absolutely.
And Tony Dodd is the other one who has written about farmers who near Whitby staked out a field at night with
Shotguns and everything,
with
yeah.
shotguns and infrared technology to
Yes.
trigger cameras, and they found a mutilated sheep right in front of them
Yeah,
the following
yards,
day.
like 50, 60 yards from
So
where it's at.
it's a covert technology.
Yes.
But you know, but it's one that is evaded capture, at least that we know of.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay then, chaps, we're going to go for another short break now, and we'll be discussing more on animal mutilation after this.